Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy again. You're reading with Jimmy, Alice in Wonderland. We're covering the next part of chapter one. We left off with Alice ending her fall on dry leaves. She sees the rabbit. She follows the rabbit and comes into a dark hall with a bunch of doors, but there's no keys. And so she's trapped. She sees a little table. And she sees a key on the table, but it doesn't fit any of the doors. She keeps seeing things that she didn't see before, which is an important concept to see things that we didn't see before. So, and what happens then? Before I go on, we had an email from a listener, and I wanted to start out with that for these next couple of pages. The listener asked, why don't we see what we need to see? Does that mean we are always in Wonderland? Which is a great question, actually. In all honesty, you really see what you should see, what you shouldn't see, things like that. You see, we get all of our information from our senses. And you are, in fact, always in Wonderland. Because if you remember what we talked about last time, you can't put your foot in a flowing river in the same place twice because the river keeps moving. So one of the things that I want you to consider when you're listening to Alice's adventures is think about your own Wonderland that you're in. Just everything around you that you look at. Look at it again, and you'll start seeing things you don't see before. So we left off, as I said, with Alice ending her fall, and she actually, let's see what she did here. A few minutes to shrink further. She actually takes something that we're going to talk about. So she ended her fall, and she's ready. And even if my head would fit in, she's looking through this rat hole at a beautiful garden, but she's too big to get into the rat hole. So the last part of the last page says, and even if my head would go through, thought Alice, she's thinking again, she wouldn't be able to do it. She would shut up like a telescope. Let's talk about that for a minute. Shut up like a telescope. In the old days, a lot of times when we think about telescopes, they're one piece. But in the old days, if you've ever seen any pirate movies, the pirate takes out his telescope and it opens and it closes. And that's what she means, that I wish I could fit in there to shut up like a telescope so she could shrink and get into the rat hole and go into the beautiful garden. And then I want to call your attention to the next sentence here. For you see, so many out of the way things happened to Alice that she had begun to think that very few things indeed were really impossible. Who says that? Well, it's actually the third person narrator. And the question I want to ask for you is that normally what we were doing is we were looking at the narrator putting things in parentheses. If you remember, these are parentheses. And when he would put words in parentheses, that was him talking. So the question you have to ask yourself here is why isn't this sentence in parentheses? Because it's still the narrator. This is a third person narrator, right? Third person, THRD, person, narrator. What does that mean? Yes, he's outside the story talking to us. So why isn't this in parentheses? Well, the difference is that when he puts sentences or comments in parentheses, they're like what we call an aside. I'm going to write that down, ASIDE, an aside. What's an aside? Well, you can look it up on Google or in your dictionaries, but an aside is kind of like, oh, by the way. An aside, oh, by the way. Sometimes when you're looking at courtroom dramas on television, you'll see the judge say, sidebar, or you'll see one of the attorneys say, sidebar, Your Honor. Sidebar, sidebar. What's a sidebar? Well, a sidebar is like an aside. A sidebar is when you get together away from the jury, away from the people in the courtroom, and you and the attorneys talk to the judge and you hear what they're saying, or you don't if you're the third person narrator. So an aside, a sidebar is where the narrator is talking to us aside. It's like, oh, by the way, in this case, the narrator is really telling us, and as part of the story, for you see. The you is you, the reader. So many out of the way things had happened to her that she'd begun to think very few things were really impossible. That's what I want to talk to you about as well. This whole thing about Wonderland is about your imagination, letting your imagination go. So in the next paragraph, there seemed to be no use in waiting for the little doors. She went back to the table, hoping that she might find another key on it. She did find the key, but if you remember, it didn't fit any of the doors. And it did fit this door, this little rat hole door with a passage in it, with a garden. And it was a beautiful garden. She wanted to get into there. So this time she finds a little bottle on the table that says, drink me. Okay? It says, drink me, drink me. That's a command, isn't it? That's a command. Let's put that in here. Drink me. Drink me. What's going on here? Drink me. Drink me. There we go. Okay. Now the narrator takes over and starts talking to us. It was all very well to say, drink me, but the wise little Ellis, you see what he calls her, a wise little Ellis, wise little Ellis. Whoops. Wise little Ellis. That's the narrator saying she's a wise little Ellis because she had read about things that, if they were, say, drink me, you don't drink it. If it says poison, if it says poison, you shouldn't drink it. There's a simple rule, right? That she knows with her friends, and she goes through here and she reads about it. And, her friends were saying, you don't do that. If you red hot poker will burn you. Simple rules, simple rules. These are simple rules you learn by people telling you or through your experience. When I was a young kid, I would, touch the stove and my mother would say, don't touch that, you'll burn your fingers. And I would say, and why? And I keep asking why, until I did burn my fingers. It wasn't a severe burn, but I had to learn through experience not to touch a hot stove. So as we go through life, we learn things, we experience things, and we learn simple rules in life. Don't cross the street without looking both ways. Those little things are burned into us. So Alice, when she sees this bottle that says, drink me, she's cautious. She's cautious. She doesn't drink it right away, but she examines it again, and she does not see the word marked poison, because it would certainly, as she said, it would certainly disagree with you sooner or later, right? But it was not marked poison. See, the word not is in italics. Remember, italics is when your reader voice should go up or down. However, this bottle was not marked poison. That's the way you read those words, not marked poison. So she drank some, and she found it very nice. Now, I want you to think about how she describes the flavor. She's describing the flavor. Let me write that down. No, I don't need to write that down. You know what flavor is. The flavor, there's the word flavor spelled differently because this is a different time. Flavor, you can spell it. Cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I've never tasted anything that tasted like cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast. I wouldn't even know where to begin to describe that. But she said, there it is. In fact, a sort of mix, right? However, this bottle was not. So Alice ventured in finding it very nice. Parentheses. Who's saying that? The third person narrator. She soon finished, so she drinks this thing, this bottle. She drinks it, which is interesting. And then she says, what a curious feeling. I must be shutting up like a telescope. There it is. She wanted to do it, and now she's doing it. She's shutting up. If you remember over here, right? Over here, I wish I could. She drinks the bottle, and she sounds like she's shutting up like a telescope. She gets her wish. Gets her wish. And so it was indeed. She was now 10 inches tall. Can you imagine being 10 inches tall? I can't. It's like, oh my gosh. I know there was a movie called The Puppet People, I think, where they were very, very small people. 10 inches tall, right? She thought now the right side. It's perfect for getting through the little door, the little rat hole door into the garden. But first, now these are my underlinings when I read the book. She waited for a few minutes to see if she was going to shrink any further. She felt a little nervous about this. Now, this is an important part of the Wonderland story. She shrunk to 10 inches, but she stopped because she wanted to find out if she's going to shrink any more. Because she starts getting nervous. Why is she getting nervous? Because she said to herself, am I going out altogether like a candle? She might shrink and go out like a candle. And then she says, I wonder what I should be like then. You see, this story is Wonderland, and it's all about wonder, what she wonders, right? So I want you to think about this for a moment. What would it feel like to go out like a candle? It's very difficult to imagine, isn't it? So she fancies what the flame of the candle looks like after the candle is blowing out. She's trying to imagine, what does the flame after a candle is blown out look like? Well, there is no flame, is there, ladies and gentlemen? When you blow out a candle, you blow out the flame. And she could not remember ever having seen such a thing. Okay? This is a very important concept to all of us. Okay? I'm going to write this down. We can only imagine or know through our senses. Okay? All the information you and I and everyone who's alive gets comes through our senses. Do you know the 5 senses? Seeing, hearing, right? Smelling, tasting, feeling, touch. Right? So those are your 5 senses. Some people say, have you ever heard them say, you have a 6th sense about something? I don't know what that means, but right now, human beings have 5 senses. Everything that we know and think about has to come through one of these portals. It has to. Otherwise, you're never going to know anything. So, for example, some people are colorblind. Some people can't see red and green, like Jimmy. I'm colorblind. So all my life, I've confused reds and greens. So I cannot see what other people who are not colorblind see when they look at a red or they look at a green. So I had to train myself to see the red and the green. So Alice, in this case, is trying to imagine what a flame looks like after the candle, right? It looks like after the candle is blown out. And she can't remember what anything like that is. And I want to use your imagination and you try to figure that out, because there is no flame. If you blow out the flame of the candle, you blow it out. And then after a while, finding that nothing more happened, and we're going to stop there for this chapter. This is a beautiful chapter. I want to thank the person who emailed me for the question about Wonderland. But this is a wonderful part of chapter 1. We're still on chapter 1, where we now find that Alice took a drink, shrank. She's ready to go into the hole that she saw into the beautiful garden. She's no longer shrinking, and we're going to take it from there. Right? Thank you so much for staying with me. Watch for the next analysis of the next part of chapter 1. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com is my email. Please send me any of your questions. Thank you so much.